Hi, happy early weekend. I hope you had a beautiful week so far, and I hope that you had a beautiful and memorable Mother's Day weekend. To the mothers, to the grandmothers, to the aunties, to the sisters, um, in heaven and in earth. Uh, Even, if you don't visibly see your mother, you still experience, I feel like, Mother's Day each and every day through memories, the lessons that they have maybe left behind, uh, the love that's been poured into you, and the way that she still really speaks into your heart. It's really, in those small reminders that she is still very much, a part of who you are becoming. So I want to wish a very special Mother's Day to all of the beautiful mothers out there. But today, I just wanted to briefly discuss a topic that came into my mind this week. And it's one that I believe is not just very important, but it's also very relatable, which is to stress less and live less. Um, we live in a very stressful world. Everywhere that we turn, people are carrying, heaviness, facing constant pressure, trying to keep up with this nonstop pace of society. Stress has become one of the greatest battles our generation has really ever faced. From counseling sessions, uh, prescriptions, drugs, street drugs, books, workshops, meditation apps, stress is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Think about that. Billions of dollars are literally being spent each year searching for peace. Tired of worrying, tired of struggling, tired of feeling overwhelmed by all these different responsibilities, expectations, uncertainty, and fear. Why is it important to stress less? Because doesn't just affect your mind and your life, but it eventually starts to show up on the outside too. People don't realize how stress can change the way a person looks, feels, behaves, and carries themselves. Society has really conditioned us to believe that our value is tied by how much we can get done and how much that we can actually handle. We live in a world that pushes us to move faster, to achieve more, and just really never pause. Accomplishment is just always applauded. Being constantly busy is admired. And being burned out is really mistaken for success. But in the middle of all this, too many people are losing something priceless, and that's their peace. People are constantly connected to their phones, but rarely ever present. People are smiling on the outside while silently carrying pressure, anxiety, disappointment, and fear on the inside. Or they're chasing, deadlines, recognition, attention, approval. People can never be found in areas of constantly receiving. A world that never slows down, it will eventually watch its people collapse. And that's why we see so many people who are just completely and emotionally drained, mentally exhausted, and spiritually empty. Real strength isn't just found in achieving more, it's found in knowing when to pause, knowing when to reflect, and when to protect you from the stress and pressures of life. I always believe that a successful life means very little if you lose yourself mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Too many people are really giving up or giving away their peace for pressure, their health for hustle, and their happiness for approval of others. Social media was initially really designed to connect us, but over time it's become one of the main drivers, I believe, of our modern day stress. Giving constant access to the lives of others, their achievements, their milestones, their perfect moments, their perfect bodies, but rarely the full reality behind them. So much of today's stress doesn't just be is because of who we are or come from who we are, but it really comes from who we think that we're supposed to be. So what are some ways to really stress less and live less? I believe the best way is to really look to Jesus. Jesus is someone who walked straight under the most intense pressures. He lived a life that was surrounded by constant stress, urgency, opposition, and expectations. He lived a life that was surrounded by crowds who also followed him, religious leaders who questioned him. His closest friends, they didn't always understand him. Even his disciples didn't always understand him. But nowhere do we see him ever falling apart. And there's really no record of him being stressed in the Bible. In the middle of a storm, on the seas, when the waves are really crashing, and his disciples were just completely terrified, Jesus was asleep. Not because the storm wasn't actually happening, but because his peace was stronger and outweighed any of the storm. And when he stood up, he wasn't stressed, he just spoke. When the weight of the cross was right before him, he didn't run from the pressure, he prayed deeply. Even during this moment, he was still centered in trust and never overwhelmed by stress. He never escaped any type of stressful situation. He mastered it. Take care of your body. When we neglect our bodies, stress doesn't just stay in the mind, but it really affects and begins to develop in all areas of our lives, or all areas of our bodies. The simple things like just getting enough rest, eating properly, staying hydrated, maintaining a balanced routine, they all have a huge impact on how we handle stress. When the body is exhausted, even the smallest things can make things feel unbearable. But when we take care of ourselves, we build the strength to face challenges with a clear mind and a calm spirit. Good health doesn't remove stress completely, but it does give us the ability to just be able to handle it much more effectively. Taking care of your health is really a form of respect for yourself. And it's a way of saying that I'm strong enough to take care of what I need so that stress doesn't literally take over me. If you want to have peace, you're going to have to want it bad. It's impossible to have peace with your circumstances if you don't really have peace within yourself. So you have to have peace within yourself. And that's where a lot of the stress, I believe, really starts, because a lot of people, they don't just really like themselves. Many people aren't just overwhelmed by life, but they're also in conflict with themselves. They don't like who they are, or they're just constantly measuring themselves to others. That internal struggle creates a level of stress that no external success or distraction can actually fix or fully fix. It's going to be really difficult to have peace with your circumstances if you don't have peace first within yourself. Keep a positive attitude. Even something simple as getting stuck in traffic or not being able to find a parking space can really either become, a moment of frustration or a moment of peace. And the only difference is really how you respond to it. You might not be able to control the actual situation, but you can definitely control how you react to it. You can choose to stay calm and accept the moment for what it is instead of allowing stress to build over something. Stress is usually less about what's happening and more about the attitude that you choose to carry through it. And as I always say, your attitude is yours. And no one on this planet can force you to have a terrible attitude if you don't want to. Carry strength ahead of time. We will never be able to really fully manage everything that comes to us because not all storms are really in the forecast. Many things that happen, they happen suddenly and they happen unexpectedly. And so we need to always sort of be prepared for that. We need to be strong ahead of time and not wait until we are in some sort of a mess and then try to get strong to reach out to God. Stress isn't just something, that I learned in theory, but it's literally something that I've lived. For most of my life, all throughout my teenage years, from 13 up until, you know, my, I would say about my early 30s, stress, worry, anxiety was my norm. It was really how I operated. I was constantly doing, constantly moving, constantly overthinking, constantly carrying responsibilities in literally every direction of my life. There was always something to handle, something to fix, something to keep together. And because of that, stress just became just way too familiar to me. It became the background of my life. And I didn't even realize how heavy it was because I was just so used to living in it. But what I learned eventually was that, just because you can function, pretty well under pressure, it doesn't actually mean that you're living in peace. I had to learn that stress, it doesn't have to be the way to live, that I don't just have to survive life, that I can actually walk and live through it in peace. And that's really the heart of everything that I am sharing today. Learning how to manage stress instead of letting stress manage you. Becoming more aware of what's really happening on the inside before it really starts taking over on the outside. Because the goal isn't a life with no stress, it's learning how to handle it without really being overwhelmed with it. Think of a balloon. It can be surrounded by intense pressure, but as long as that balloon isn't overfilled, it can actually hold on. The key is not about removing all of the pressure, it's knowing the limit, protecting the peace, and allowing itself to be overfilled beyond what it's meant to carry. You aren't meant to live in just constant overwhelm. You're not designed to carry everything all at once. There's a better way to live and a more grounded and clearer way. So even in a stressful world, you can choose something different. You can choose a way of living that doesn't let pressure or stress define you. Because real peace, it's not found when everything is calm. It's found in a person who's learned how to stay calm even when everything isn't. And I hope you have a beautiful and blessed weekend ahead. Enjoy the weather and enjoy your weekend.